There's a moment in history that almost nobody outside of the Bitcoin community talks about. And yet, it explains why we're drowning in debt, why your paycheck buys you less and less every year, and why Bitcoin even exists in the first place.
President Nixon in August 15, 1971, took the dollar off the gold standard so we could print more money, so we could steal your wealth.
And the reason that he decoupled gold from currency was to pay for the Vietnam War.
For most of modern history, every US dollar was backed by real gold. The paper in your pocket wasn't money itself. It was a claim check, a receipt for something tangible in a vault. The gold, that promise kept governments honest. They couldn't just print more money whenever they wanted, lest they drive up prices and inflation. But on August 15, 1971, President Richard Nixon ended that promise. With one announcement on live television, the dollar was cut loose from gold forever. Overnight, the US dollar became nothing but paper, backed by political will and the printing press. This is what was referred to as the Nixon Shock. That moment, the Nixon Shock, set up a chain reaction of events: inflation, inequality, and endless debt. And 50 years later, it's the reason a new form of money was born: Bitcoin. Money with rules, not rulers. I'm Oceans. This is Beyond Bitcoin. I have a new microphone. Let's go.
Gold and silver emerged as the most durable, most convenient, most satisfactory money. For greater convenience, men started stamping out gold and silver coins with values imprinted on them.
We can't talk about the Nixon Shock without understanding what the gold standard was first. What was the gold standard?
Isn't that like the highest SAT score or something?
The gold standard meant that the US dollar could be redeemed for gold at a fixed price. $35 an ounce. $35 an ounce for gold. Wow. So the dollar in this relationship wasn't just value that could be printed infinitely as it is today. It actually meant something. It was tied to the value of the time, which was gold. It was a representation. And this tethered these dollar receipts to something finite. Why? Well, I don't know if you've done any gold smelting recently, but it's quite a process to extract raw ore from the earth and refine it into a clean, beautiful brick of gold. This process requires a lot of work. Why does it matter that our money requires work to make? Well, if it doesn't require work to make the money, then you could just make the money out of nothing, and then you could just make a bunch of it forever. Maybe that's why the manufacturing of money should require work. For gold, you could always find more of it and refine more of it, but it takes an enormous amount of effort to do so. For dollars, it's just a couple clicks of the keyboard. So this attribute of a money that requires work kept governments in check. It means that they couldn't print it. They had to tie it to something. The receipt was backed by something. It meant something. But by the late 1960s, the U.S. was already bleeding gold.
So are we based on gold or not?
No, we haven't been on gold for many years. It was in 1973 or 71, was it? Nixon suspended the gold standard, and we've never been back on it since then.
So our currency was actually backed by an actual gold.
The idea was that you could, for every dollar you printed, you had to put away a certain amount of gold. So what I was talking about before, after World War II, Europe is destroyed. America is still left stable. This is when America, they created what was known as the Bretton Woods Agreement. So essentially, America was like the dominant power in the world. We had the huge portion of the world's gold at this point. And so the deal that we came up with was essentially that other countries would peg their currency to the dollar, and we would peg the dollar to gold. So you were kind of on a dollar standard. You were kind of on a gold standard if you went on a dollar standard.
Got it.
And we set the price at $35 an ounce. So for every $35 we printed, we had to put away an ounce of gold. Okay, so this
Into
was
Fort Knox?
Yeah, I think that's where it was supposed to be caught. Also, has not been audited, but I think that's where it was supposed to be.
That bitch is empty, I'm sure, dude.
It's, I think, long gone.
As you can imagine, Vietnam War spending plus Great Society programs equals deficits. Foreign countries started demanding their gold back for dollars. France even sent multiple naval vessels to New York to collect. And this, of course, led to a big problem because they had more money on the books than they had the reserves to fulfill those promises.
Yeah. So the issue is, if gold is money and it goes into a bank, the bankers issue 10x more paper than there is gold. You have inflation. Eventually, right, when the French tried to redeem their paper dollars for gold, the U.S. basically closed the gold window. We defaulted on that obligation, and we started a cycle of inflation from 1971 on that's been running 50 years. Now, when FTX failed, it was no different. The issue is people put Bitcoin on FTX, and then Sam turned around and issued 3x as much paper, obligations. And when people try to withdraw the Bitcoin, he doesn't have it. He fails.
The United States did not have enough to cover their redemptions for gold. So stuck between a rock and a hard place, Nixon quietly announced on a Sunday night, August 15th, 1971, that gold would no longer be redeemable for dollars, temporarily, of course, temporarily.
The strength of a nation's currency is based on the strength of that nation's economy. And the American economy is by far the strongest in the world. Accordingly, I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators. I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States.
He didn't outlaw the gold as FDR had done in 1933 with the Executive Order 6102. He did something entirely different, maybe even worse. Overnight, Nixon changed the concept of the dollar entirely, and he did it under the guise that it's a temporary measure, that this thing will always go back to the way it was. But it never did. And it absolutely changed the way we think of what money is. Medium of exchange, unit of account, fungibility. Money has all those properties, and gold seemed to satisfy that for the market for the longest time. But what Nixon did was absolutely change this idea, because he said that the thing you're transacting with every day, which is actually the US dollar, no one's transacting in gold every day. They're transacting this US dollar. The dollar represents, it is the value of the gold. It represents the gold. You're transacting in this receipts because at some point you can take that receipt and redeem it for the true value. But what Nixon did was he severed that connection. He severed the relationship between gold and the dollar. So now the dollar is this currency that is just floating around since 1971. It just, the value comes from, who knows where the value comes from? The Fed, I guess. So it's at this point that Nixon is basically destroying the agreement of Bretton Woods. And what's Bretton Woods? It's the unified agreement that all currencies around the world will be backed by the US dollar. Why were they all in agreement to be backed by the US dollar? Because the US dollar was backed by gold, and the US was known to have all the gold. It all sort of stemmed down like a trickle-down pyramid scheme, if you will. Currencies around the world floated freely, as they do today. But pretty much all currencies are going through inflation right now. The US dollar became fiat that night, and for the first time, governments could inflate without restraint. After 1971, the dollar lost its anchor, like a balloon being let go at a birthday party. Nixon just, and like water, the money seeped into everything. Your rent, your groceries, your car payments.
I watched in awe, realizing that money as we understood it was ending. What a crisis. I expected the stock market to plunge the next day, so I got on the exchange floor early to prepare. When the opening bell rang, pandemonium broke out, but not the kind I expected. The market was up, way up, and went on to rise nearly 25%. That surprised me, because I never experienced a currency devaluation before. When I dug into history, I discovered that the exact same thing happened in 1933 and had the exact same effect. Then, paper dollars were also linked to gold, which the U.S. was running out of because it was spending more paper money checks than it had gold to exchange for them. In both cases, breaking the link to gold allowed the U.S. to continue spending more than it earned, simply by printing more paper dollars. Since there was an increase in the number of dollars without an increase in the country's wealth, the value of each dollar fell. As these new dollars entered the market, without a corresponding increase in productivity, they went to buy lots of stocks, gold, and commodities, and hence caused their prices to rise.
The result? Inflation, rising inequality, wages that don't keep up with costs, and a national debt spiraling into the trillions today. Thanks, Tom. Now let me just pause here and talk about the severing of a connection between the dollar and gold, and how it's similar, how you don't want your connection to be severed in times of a crisis. You like that segue? Sat123.com has a full lineup of tools: satellite phones, portable hotspots, power kits that keep you online and communicating when everything else goes dark. And if you go to sat123.com right now, you put the promo code in simply, you'll get 15% off your purchase. All this gear. That's amazing. If you want to stay connected in times of crisis, sat123.com. The Nixon Shock isn't just some milestone in history. It's the event that led to the whacking out of all kinds of metrics, from worker pay versus productivity to the price of a can of tomato soup, a rise in crime, falling birth rates, and sadly, many of the things that we're experiencing today. Many of these metrics are illustrated in a great website right below here. I'll just put it down here. WTFhappenedin1971.com. One of those ripples is the creation of a fixed supply digital currency. Yes, I'm talking about Bitcoin. This channel is called Simply Bitcoin. Why wouldn't I be talking about Bitcoin? Now, it took a little time, but Bitcoin is a direct answer to Nixon's 1971 policy. Satoshi Nakamoto launched it in 2009 in the middle of another crisis of money printing, the global financial crisis, which I'm sure a few of you have heard of out there.
What's the global financial crisis?
Unless you're all zooming around. If you could imagine the U.S. money system as a dam holding up all that value, 1971 was like the crack. As the crack goes, it just keeps spilling out everywhere, just exploding. And then the town below gets all flooded and everyone's crying that they have no place to live. And if you've ever wondered why Bitcoin feels so necessary at a time like this, it's because the foundations of our money broke that night, back in 1971. And we've been living in the aftershock ever since. It may feel like a long time, but it's actually, on the scale of human existence, it's actually a very small amount of time, like that.
Bitcoin is this incredible thing because it's invisible. People really don't understand what it means for something to go up 100 million X in 16 years. It means, like, I think I've said this before on other podcasts, but it's like, future historians will have to tell children that Bitcoin did not arise overnight. Like, it wasn't just like a step function that just went up. That it was actually like, there are lots of setbacks and stuff in the middle. But on like a historical timescale, it's just like, as soon as Bitcoin appeared, the dollar collapsed. That's like what future historians will say.
That's why we built this extension, to help people internalize this as they're going to the internet. It's like, you should be pricing things in Bitcoin and observing how they're changing over time.
And observing how they're changing. Exactly. That's why your hat says Sats, right? The Sats hat, right? So yeah, like, it's something where as soon as Bitcoin appeared on the scene, the hardest money around started attracting the smartest money around, right? Smart money has been going into Bitcoin for 16 years in larger and larger and larger quantities, and it's still going to go. So if you combine the internet disrupting Blue America with China disrupting Red America, with the loss of reserve currency and Bitcoin going to the moon, you have a situation where, man, the Blue Americans will be really mad. They'll be really mad because they'll say, and I actually don't love this framing, but I'll just say, they'll say, AI took all the jobs and Bitcoin took all the money and the tech guys should take all the blame.
Now, if you want to be part of this future of money and leave this crumbling system behind, you need to check out Sazmining.com. Sazmining.com is helping build the infrastructure for Bitcoin's next chapter. They offer hosted Bitcoin mining where you own the rig and you collect the sats. And they take care of all the technicals and the energy requirements with clean, renewable energy sources. Now, if you go to Sazmining.com right now and you put the promo code in simply, you'll get $100 off your first rig. Book a call with one of their expert team members today and start mining your way out of this junky system. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you like what you see and you want to see more as my hair grows longer and longer, because I'm going to try and grow it out, then you can hit that like button below, or you can subscribe to the Simply Bitcoin channel for more content like this. We're coming out with it every single day of the week. Also, don't forget to hit that notification bell. I'm Oceans. This is Beyond Bitcoin. Until next time, guys.